everyone, and thank you for joining today's Meeting Community Needs During the COVID-19 Pandemic, Successes in the Promise Zones webinar series. Webinar 1, COVID-19 Testing, Food, and Shelter Response. Before we begin, please ensure you have opened the chat panel by using the associated icon located at the bottom of your screen. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. Please note that all audio connections are muted at this time. You are welcome to submit a written question throughout, which will be addressed at the Q&A sessions of the webinar. To submit a written question, select all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel. Then hit Enter on your keyboard when you are ready to send your message. With that, I will turn the call over to Michelle Perez.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I am Michelle Perez, Assistant Deputy Secretary for HUD's Office of Field Policy and Management. My team at HUD supports the department's place-based initiatives, including the Promise Zones. I am thrilled to represent them and their hard work and to join you for this critically important conversation today. On behalf of HUD, I'm pleased to present this webinar, which is jointly co-hosted with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the National Coalition of Promise Zones. This webinar is the first installment in a three-part series, as was just named, Meeting Community Needs During the COVID-19 Pandemic, Successes in the Promise Zones. The needs are vast, and we all recognize how much more work must be done. But this series focuses on how we partner and leverage our relationships to deliver relief and assistance, and most importantly, how we build and foster community in times of crises. The folks on this call are the power and the heart behind this work, each and every single one of you. They know firsthand how communities have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, physically, mentally, socially, and economically. Thank you for your continued service and your commitment to driving lasting change in the face of a global pandemic, which has undoubtedly exacerbated and amplified needs that have existed long before COVID. In this moment, as we change the course of the pandemic, build a bridge towards economic recovery, and invest in racial justice for residents, small businesses, our elders, neighbors, friends, and families, our speakers today will feature how community members work tirelessly in responding to COVID. Our work today is at the forefront of the Biden-Harris administration's priorities. We are all a part of the American Rescue Plan, efforts to address and support our community's needs and help them recover safely. This webinar series is one step among many on a long and challenging journey, and there's no other place I'd rather be than here with you. I now want to recognize and appreciate our presenters from the National Coalition of Promise Zones for being available to talk with you all today about what's working, what's helping, and how they are making a difference. Today's webinar will focus on 3 Promise Zones: Choctaw Nation, Oklahoma, Evansville, Indiana, and Sacramento, California. We will learn from them about how they are delivering COVID-19 testing, expanding food security, and providing shelter for their community members. I now have the honor of introducing our lineup of speakers from the USDA and our Promise Zone partners. First is Farah Ahmad, Chief of Staff for USDA Rural Development. She currently serves as the Chief of Staff, and from 2015 through 2017, Ms. Ahmad served as a program manager with the Rural Business Cooperative Services Community and Economic Development Program. Jackie Ponte-Lazarek is a Chief Innovation Officer for USDA Rural Development. As our Rural Development Innovation Officer, she and her team work to enhance program delivery and enable more strategic, data-driven policies, processes, and outreach. Sarah Jane Smallwood-Cock is of the Choctaw Nation Promise Zone. She is a Senior Government Affairs Strategist and Promise Zone Coordinator for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. She helps facilitate federal and state relations and partnerships to effectively serve Choctaw Nation and its people. Silas Matcham Sr. is the Director of the Evansville Promise Zone. Silas is starting his 5th year leading the zone designation. Since the designation in 2016, the Evansville Promise Zones has shown success in the areas of housing, job development, crime reduction, economic development, education, and health. And finally, Julius Austin Sacramento Promise Zone Coordinator for the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, the lead organization for the Sacramento Promise Zone in California. Julia specializes in creating strategic partnerships and coordinating Promise Zone activities and processes that address issues of neighborhood housing development, public safety, job creation, training and placement, economic development, small business development financing, educational opportunities, and neighborhood revitalization issues. And with that, I will now turn it over to Farah Ahmad. Farah?
Thank you so much, Assistant Deputy Secretary Perez. I really appreciate your time and introduction and that overview of today's wonderful event. Just again, my name is Farah Ahmad, and I'm the Chief of Staff for Rural Development at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I just want to thank everyone for hosting this series, my USDA colleagues and my colleagues at HUD, and of course, the National Coalition of Promise Zones. On behalf of myself and Deputy Undersecretary Justin Maxson, who is also a leader in rural development and who couldn't join us today, I just want to say we are so excited to hear from you all and to learn from you all. You have a front office at Rural Development that knows you and that appreciates your work. I think as Michelle just mentioned, I worked at USDA Rural Development during the Obama administration as well and had the pleasure of supporting the Promise Zone initiative at that time. And I remember the earliest years of that program. There was just a small number of Promise Zones, and then the first designations for rural and tribal Promise Zones for Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky and Choctaw Nation. And thanks to the leadership of the Promise Zone since that time and to now, there are more new community health centers, more quality jobs, more affordable housing, and better access to broadband in the communities within the Promise Zones all across the country. And it really was an honor for me to be able to support the Promise Zone initiative in those early years. I have just amazing memories of visiting Choctaw Nation, seeing Sarah Jane and all of her counterparts and colleagues do amazing work with the Choctaw Language Program and their local foods initiatives, and then also spent a lot of time in southeastern Kentucky on the road, focused on, providing support to some of their arts and cultural institutions. And I still get the Kentucky Promise Zone report cards every 2 weeks and make sure to get myself familiar with all of the good work that's continued since I started supporting the initiative back in 2015. And I just want to say that some of the leadership that I've seen the Promise Zones take on over the last number of years have really been transformative within federal government. I know that Kentucky, for example, really tied together, some of their community development needs with what's going on in the pandemic right now and pushed for, distance learning and telemedicine key programs at Rural Development to be part of the Promise Zone Preference Program. And, in today's world with the pandemic, we know just how important distance learning and telemedicine really is. Telehealth right now is it's the way for some patients to get health care and the only way. And so I just want to say I'm so excited to be back and to support this initiative. And to me, Promise Zones are really the model for how federal government should be supporting communities. It's a way that I view federal government to be in service of communities, to really support a community's own vision, and for federal government to be a partner and work in collaboration in service of the communities. I've always been an advocate for Promise Zones, and I'll continue to be so. I don't really, it's not the job of Promise Zones to understand the dense, crazy maze that is the federal government. It's our job to help make sure that the vision of the Promise Zones and for communities turn into reality, and for us to help navigate the complexities of government. And I know it hasn't always worked that way, but we are committed to being a stronger partner, a better partner every day and every year we move forward. And I want to commit to helping grow that trust and that partnership. And I know that Secretary Vilsack feels the same way. So we just look forward to continuing to work with you and also to learn from you and the creativity of all the hard work that's going on in the Promise Zones. And, like I said, our programs in rural development, they're meant to really be, they have parameters. It's like the outline of a picture frame. It's a frame that I know sometimes can be difficult to work with and to put a picture into that frame because the rules don't always make it easy. But at the end of the day, the picture in that frame is really yours. And so we're here to support that in every way we can. So just thank you again so much for the opportunity to say hello and to say that I appreciate your leadership and your continued work. Thank you so much.
Now we'll pass the presenting rights to Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane, take it away.
Hello, good afternoon from the great Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. My name is Sarah Jane Smallwood, and I've been with the Choctaw Nation's Promise Zone since 2014 when we first got our initial designation, and have worked for the nation on and off for about 20 years and have been full-time now for about 12 years. So I am a Choctaw tribal member, and I'm honored to get to work for my tribe and get to serve our people daily through working in government relations and the Promise Zone. So because we are the only tribal nation on this call, I wanted to just give you a quick overview of who we are and what we're talking about when we talk about the Choctaw Nation Promise Zone. So the Promise Zone encompasses all of the Choctaw Nation's reservation, which is about 12,000 square miles. This is a pretty large chunk of the state of Oklahoma, about really the southeast quarter of the state. So we border Arkansas and Texas and have a lot of tribal citizens who live in both of those states as well as in Oklahoma. However, we have 200,000 tribal citizens who live all around the world, and we actually have Choctaws who reside in every single Promise Zone. So the National Promise Zone Coalition is important to me because I know that partnering with my colleagues around the country, they're also serving Choctaws as well as people in need in their zones. And so this kind of just gives you a little bit of an overview of who we are in the Choctaw Nation, what our land mass looks like. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the state, and we love having people come to visit. So I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to all of the career and political officials on this call. We love to have you visit and come visit again. We love hosting people. So when we first became the first tribal Promise Zone, we really developed a mission of making sure that we were on the right page with who we were serving and how we were serving. So this gives a quick overview of really at our core, we want to work collaboratively and serve our community and serve our tribal citizens. The COVID-19 response has been critical to the mission of the nation, and this tells you a little bit about what has been going on over the course of the last year. Food security and insecurity has been a major issue, and we want to ensure that our communities and our tribal citizens have enough access to fresh fruits and vegetables in their time of need. So early on in the COVID pandemic, we provided food to a lot of communities, to tribal and non-tribal participants. So this was open to everyone in the area. But we also provide testing to everyone in the area as well, whether they're a tribal citizen or not. So just in 2020 alone, we had about 5,500 volunteer hours from our Choctaw Nation employees. So this shows that we are dedicated to serving others, and this is just for 2020 numbers from our annual report. So here, focusing on our response on the healthcare side of things, this picture I like. This is our assistant chief, Jack Austin, And he is always one of the first in our tribal leadership to lead the charge. So this is him donating plasma after he recovered from COVID-19. So he knows the importance of making sure that we can donate the blood and the antibodies. And we had a big drive, I think it was in January. And this is him, he and Chief were the first in line to make sure that they were demonstrating to others of the importance of the plasma donation. Our healthcare authority is the premier provider of medical services in our neck of the woods. It's where I receive all my medical care. The hospital is in Talahena. It was the first tribal hospital actually built with tribal dollars in the country about 20 years ago. It's a fantastic facility that serves tribal members from a variety of tribes. If you're a CDIB card holder, you can access our services. But it also provides services, especially for emergency care for non-natives. We've had a lot of rural hospitals and clinics closed around the area, and Choctaw Nation really fills that gap for emergency and ambulance services in the area. We also have 8 regional clinics around the reservation, as well as wellness centers and inpatient mental health and recovery facilities throughout the reservation. And this number is a little outdated, but we provide about 500,000 inpatient and outpatient visits annually. And I know that number will increase drastically for this year. So specifically for COVID-19 response, we provide drive-through COVID testing, plasma donations. This is a picture of Chief, Assistant Chief, and 2 of our tribal council members when they donated plasma. And also we were quickly on the ball with our vaccine rollout, prioritizing our elderly first and vulnerable populations. Our tribal newspaper from this month, it really hits home with 200 elders who have died from COVID-19. We're losing part of our culture and our language, and obviously our elderly are the #1 vaccine priority. We have completed that phase, and the vaccine is now open to all adults in the Choctaw Nation. Here you can also see some information on our testing. So I have my data as of last week. However, I know the numbers have increased a lot over the weekend. So we have administered close to 50,000 COVID-19 tests at 9 locations on our reservation, and that includes all of, I think, from March 2020 to the end of February of 2021. We've also done a little more than 1,400 antibody tests, and obviously we engage in a lot of safety measures such as work from home, social distancing, and mask wearing. We've been able to keep our employee positive rates low, within the 1% to 2% of our total employee population. So it's been really great to see everybody band together and do the right thing to serve others. So really our medical staff, our doctors and our nurses have taken the full brunt of really employees going the distance to serve others and to do the testing and the vaccinations. Also, at the end of last week, this shows how many vaccinations we've been able to do. However, I didn't have a chance to update the slides, but we recently just got the numbers for one of our special vaccination events that we did over the weekend, and we were able to vaccinate 2,800 people just this weekend alone. There's a follow-up event scheduled 3 weeks from now to do the second round. And so we're excited to see those numbers continue to increase for both the first and second rounds of the vaccination. You can also get your vaccination just by scheduling a regular appointment at any medical facility. That's how I got my first vaccination. And but also the special vaccination weekend events on the weekend really draw on a lot of people who can't come during the week. So that's kind of our response in a nutshell. We're really trying to reach as many people as possible for both testing and vaccination to really make sure that that we're serving Choctaw people and all of the citizens here in the Choctaw Nation. It's an amazing thing to think about how many people it takes to make all this happen. Our healthcare staff is phenomenal, and I know I'm personally very thankful for them for having gotten my whole family vaccinated as well as myself, and it's an honor to be able to share a little bit about Choctaw Nation with you all and what our teams are doing. If you'd like more information, I put 2 links in here, one for our year in review, and then also for more detailed information about our COVID-19 response and how we've done the full rollout of vaccinations. So that's all I have for now. Happy to answer questions in the chat at the end of the presentation. And now I'm turning it over to my friend Silas from the Evansville Trauma Zone.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Today we're going to be talking about the Evansville Trauma Zone, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that we put in place during our, continuing our COVID pandemic, one being our PZ Express, and then we also made some changes to our Promise Zone app. So I will start by talking about our PZ Express, and then my fellow colleague Lisa will join in, and she will talk more directly about our Promise Zone app and some of the changes that we've made during this pandemic to better serve the individuals within our community. One of the main things in our Evansville Promise Zone is we understood that during times, most of the individuals that we serve have an issue or barrier with transportation, and identifying those particular needs to address those that need food access the most was at first pretty much a daunting task, figuring out how do we directly connect with those individuals and get them the groceries that they need. So we then started to address the need by first identifying partners who could potentially help us meet the need. We reached out to some of our local partner groups, Hope Baptist Church, which facilitates our Bridge Builders Initiative, Missing Pieces Community Development Corporation, City of Evansville, and we partnered together to launch ultimately our PZ Express. Many Promise Zones do not have a grocery store within walking distance. For that sake, the PZ Express shoppers that are able to go to a grocery store are constantly looking for ways to navigate that process and connect with different transportations, which we found out is either very expensive or they end up walking in weather that is not feasible to most individuals. So then we started to assessing the need directly. Evansville Promise Zone, by definition, is considered a food desert. As I stated before, because we do not have a grocery store within walking distance, again, identifying a process that can help them navigate that was very crucial to our Promise Zone, our Evansville Promise Zone community. So in 2017, we had a lot of data that helped us really come to this determination that really gave us a good understanding of what our transportation barriers was for our Promise Zone. From there, we started to look for a more targeted approach. We really needed to identify a primary area of focus within the community, and then we needed to really request community feedback, and then we researched providers and funding for the project itself. So we started to really zone in on the areas that we best thought we could serve our community with a targeted approach of getting them to the grocery store. What is that target area? Who are the target individuals? So we went back and we started putting small surveys out in different populations to see who would be our potential riders, what would be the best locations for us to use our Promise Zone Express. And then we came up with about 4 areas that we felt that were very targeted for our community members to participate. And from there, we started seeking out what it would take to fund a process of this nature for the community that we are serving. Since we have been in moving the Promise Zone Express, We have been able to operate twice a week each month. We stop in multiple locations, and our PZ Express is wheelchair accessible. To date, the Promise Zone Express has served over 500 residents. 500 residents that have been able to connect and get on the PZ Express, go to the grocery store, and get back home with their groceries. We really have a focused approach about timing. Our times are the same each day that we pick up. We have approximately 1 hour of shopping. And then we also we've chosen our locations very well to make sure that our grocery stores are located in areas that might have a pharmacy or a Family Dollar close by, so that they can do multiple areas of shopping while they're looking for groceries and they're waiting for us to return to pick them up and take them home. So we've really tried our hardest to look and identify what was the basic need for the individuals during this time frame, but not only during the pandemic, to find a way for sustainability so that we continue to take those at most need to the grocery store and find areas where we can be most helpful, but ultimately still looking to provide and hopefully put a grocery store in the Promise Zone. But until then, moving forward with looking with the PZ Express has been the best way to get our residents directly to the grocery store. And again, this is at no cost to them. This is a free program that's served directly out of the Evansville Promise Zone that is funded by our city of Evansville, which is our lead partner for our Evansville Promise Zone. So we're very happy and thankful for that opportunity. But again, being able to connect and get those individuals to the grocery store, planning, identifying, and then finding a focused approach to make sure that we impact those that we serve. I'm going to be moving on to the Promise Zone app now. Lisa Barclay-Sebrey will take over from here.
Hi, thank you very much for providing the introduction to the mobile app that's available in the Evansville Promise Zone. I wanted to talk a little bit about the app. It was really a dream, I can't think of any other better way to say it, of Silas Matcham to bring this functionality to some of the most vulnerable residents within the Evansville area. I'd like to go ahead and go to the next slide to talk a little bit about the goals of the mobile app. What we wanted to do is to bring an interactive mobile app to the residents in the Promise Zone. We wanted to make it very user-friendly and certainly allow individuals that were in the zone to be able to identify resources and communicate directly with the resources of various social service agencies in our area. Of course, any information needs to be maintained, and so we wanted to structure the content so that no matter who was responsible for updating the information, it would be very easy. And most of the information is available to users, and they do not have to identify themselves. If they would like to have more interaction, however, they can go ahead and sign up to interact with the mobile app. So those were some of the goals that we had. We can go to the next slide, please. If you want to see an up-close and personal view yourself, certainly if you have an Android or Apple device, you are able to download those on the appropriate app store. So we talked about the goals, and what we want to talk about next is the overall design. So let's take a look at the next slide to get an idea of what we were able to accomplish. In the mobile app itself, there are 16 different categories. So that those categories include things such as food, shelter, housing, events for children, business resources. So there are 16 different categories. In those are an additional 54 subcategories, and throughout the app there's about 300 organizations that are listed. Additionally, there's features where those in the Promise Zone with access can update with news that affects the community, as well as send out push notifications such as if there is severe weather, where can a vulnerable person stay to get out of the cold? So there's the ability to have that. There's also searchable features where you can type in a keyword and pull up the applicable agencies that correspond with your need. And if you don't have an email address, you can send a note directly to the agency. But if you choose to interact with the mobile app, you can sign up for some additional features and be able to rate different agencies, pick your favorites, and even review those agencies. You notice that I've said a lot about agencies, so I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the support and collaboration with the social service agencies within our region, because they were very excited about having the resources listed in the palm of their hand, to be able to have multiple resources so that when someone came to see them for help, they could support them on multiple levels. Well, of course, none of us expected that the COVID-19 situation would hit. And the flexibility that was built into the mobile app allowed us quickly to create a section specifically around COVID-19 and to move the information about the COVID-19 up to the top. Now, there are 6 different subcategories, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how one of those subcategories work. Included in there were certain things like grab-and-go food options. So that is where individuals could find out where the weekly food distribution, especially for the COVID-19 time frame, where that would be located, as well as for vaccinations. They would be able to link into the Department of Health information to know when their time was available to get vaccinations. But we're going to look a little bit into one section on disaster funds. So if we could go into the next slide. So this particular is showing, here we talked about the grab-and-go information. Great. That gives you a look and feel of what those sections look like. And as I alluded to, the information slide and the It's Our Shot Hoosiers is talking specifically about the vaccinations. Okay, we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. So here is a section on disaster funds, and when we click into the Dmd Emergency Fund, which is the organization highlighted, the DMD stands for the Department of Metropolitan Development, which has been a really great partner for the Evansville Promise Zone. In the red parts that you see highlighted towards the bottom, you have the address of the DMD. And a user can go ahead, click into that address, and it will provide directions as to how to get there. Below that is the phone number, and by clicking on that information, you can launch a phone call to the organization, and then you can also click into their website, because ideally that's what we want to do, is to have users contact the organizations directly. And again, above, just under the DMD icon, allows you to interact with the organization. You can write comments, pick your favorites. And then at the very top on the upper right-hand side, again, if you don't have an email address, you can communicate directly with the organization. Okay, let's go ahead to the next slide, please. We talked a little bit about push notifications. Those are those alerts that you can send out very quickly to help residents know what's happening in the community. And the example on the left is where residents can find out where they can go to get out of the cold. On the right, we have the news feed. So if there's emerging information about COVID-19, there is a specific section that you can put emerging news items. And that way, it's dedicated so people can find out that information quickly. And if needed, you can also use this section to create calendar invites for special sessions. So those are some of the parts of the mobile app. Again, we used existing functionality as far as Google Maps and even placeholders so that you could find and pinpoint where a location is, a calendar invite, interacting, as well as having many, many options for people to use individually, or if you are a service provider, you can share this information with those that you're working with. So we're happy to say that there's been close to 900 downloads of this mobile app since it was launched, and close to 5,500 of the different parts of the app have been accessed. Next slide, please. Okay. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about this mobile app, and would like to go ahead and send it back to Silas, please.
Thank you very much, Lisa. At this time, we're going to pass it on to Julius Austin from Sacramento to continue his presentation. Any questions you may have, we'll be more than glad to address within the chat at the very end of all the presentations. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Silas, my awesome partner in crime over there in Evansville. My name is Julius Austin, and I have the pleasure of being the Sacramento Promise Zone coordinator, which means I direct the daily operations of the Sacramento Promise Zone here in sunny Sacramento, California. Under the ultimate leadership of Tyrone Roderick Williams, the Deputy Executive Director of Development for Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, which is the lead agency for the Sacramento Promise Zone, and our Executive Director is Lachelle Dozier. During those daily operations, I have the pleasure of supervising up to 5 AmeriCorps Vista members. And besides seeing, I have a little technical difficulty here with our slides, but okay, here we go. Besides seeing my information there, also you can find out more information about the Sacramento Promise Zone at sacramentopromisezone.org. So our Promise Zone at a glance, a very quick glance, is we have a 22 square mile area that is parts of North, Mid, and South Sacramento. We are fortunate enough to have hundreds of partners who help to create projects, programs, initiatives that focus on increasing economic activity, creating jobs, improving educational outcomes, reducing violent crime, and expanding access to quality, affordable housing. There you can see some of the demographic information, but I won't get deep into that to save some time, but you can find all of that at, once again, sacramentopromisezone.org. So there were many COVID-19 focused projects, programs, and initiatives, and also interventions that happened here in the Sacramento Promise Zone. And for us here, that included drastically increasing our communications via social media, via e-blast, and our monthly newsletter to make sure that our partners and community members were aware of COVID-19 related resources and information that included things such as where folks can go get COVID-19 testing, where people can get PPE, and all kinds of other resources that were necessary during the pandemic. We have a great number of things listed there on the screen, but today I'm going to be focused on those things highlighted in blue. So focusing on some of our food access support and partnership efforts, some of our homelessness efforts, some of our workforce and economic development efforts, and some efforts related to distance learning and education. So in regards to food access, we're very fortunate here. The Office of the Mayor, Mayor Steinberg, here, led by Julia Burrows, hosted during the pandemic and continues to host a weekly food access coordination call where about over 30 elected officials, nonprofits who are focused on food distribution, volunteer services, or transportation and delivery join the call every single week so that we can understand the full landscape of what's going on in regards to food access and food distribution. We're able to share best practices, share resources, and build relationships that result in some great opportunities, and I'll share some of those. One of the things that the Sacramento Promise Zone was able to do to add to this call was to add the participation of our community liaison, Dr. Michael Huff, who works for HUD, and he was able to join the call to hear and understand for himself what was going on the ground here in Sacramento, and that allowed him to uplift the work and provide information on the federal level. He also was able to help identify resources, including federal grants and technical assistance. And an example of that is he was able to coordinate the participation on the call of Libby Albert, who is with the USDA Food and Nutrition Services. You can see how she might be important to folks who are focusing on providing food distribution for people in need. And she was able to come on and share resources that were beneficial to all of the partners who are on the call, and she was able to help build more direct relationships with the people who are doing the work here on the ground in the Promise Zone. And we know that Promise Zones are really big on developing relationships and partnerships to create greater impact. And some of the things we were able to do with this food access call and our participation was an example that we call Art for the Heart. We brought together partners from our local university, Sac State University, one of our major art museums, the Crocker Art Museum, and partners within the city, along with some food distribution partners. The city of Sacramento had a program called the Great Plates Program, in which they were able to provide funding to restaurants. Of course, our restaurants were in need of COVID-19 relief, and they were able to provide them funds so that they could cook meals that could then be distributed to our senior members in our community. So 1,050 senior members daily receive food, freshly cooked food from restaurants. And what we thought might be good is to help decrease the amount of isolation that they were feeling and provide them with art from local artists. The local artists were able to work with young people to help create the ideas for the art, and then the art pieces were delivered. And we recently got feedback from the senior members who received these art pieces, and we heard responses such as, "This was the only gift that I got during Christmas time." We got responses such as, "This art let me know that there are people out there who actually love and care for me." So we can see that it made a difference in the way that people felt and the things that people were dealing with in regards to isolation and mental health. Another great opportunity that was created partially from this call was we recognized that there were great things being done in regards to providing people with food, but we thought, what if we partnered the food distribution with things such as a health event that could provide flu shots, diabetes screening, blood pressure screening, health insurance information, and other health services. And we were able to do that, and that was kind of catalyzed from the call. Another example of something related to food access, we have a great partner here, the National Basketball Association team, the Sacramento Kings are here in Sacramento, and they were able to partner with us to provide 390 Rayleigh's grocery bags and gift cards that were distributed to the public housing residents here in the Promise Zone and the Marina Vista and Alder Grove public housing. And so those are some of the great things that they were able to take place to help make sure that folks had not only food but other resources to go along with the food distribution. Next, I'll talk about some of the homelessness efforts. SHRA is what I'll call it, the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, which is the housing authority for both the city and the county of Sacramento. We run and operate, a women's shelter. In that women's shelter, the capacity is about 50 guests. That capacity was reduced during the pandemic. It normally would be 100 guests, but we were able to house 50 women, and we currently house 50 women, and in total, throughout the pandemic, we've been able to house a total of 123 women. We also have what we call the Emergency Bridge Housing at the Grove, which is a cabin community that is focused on transitional age youth. And in that cabin community, we currently are housing 24 guests, and throughout the pandemic, we've been able to house 98 total transitional age youth. Also, the Capitol Park Temporary Shelter was a formal Capitol Park hotel, and it's considered a temporary shelter because it operated from September of 2019 through October of 20, so you can see that was a big portion of the pandemic. And through that, we were able to take 149 individuals who self-report themselves as facing homelessness and move them into permanent housing. So it was a really great opportunity to see folks who had been on the streets for sometimes a number of years and then move them to an opportunity where they have their own homes. Another great opportunity we have here in Sacramento is our Performance Partnership Pilot, which we call the P3 program. We have a very unique P3 program. We use the Housing Choice Voucher to provide housing stability for transitional age youth, along with them getting supportive services from our supportive service partners that help them get housing and also focus on educational goals and employment goals. And the goal for that program is for them to ultimately obtain livable wage jobs. Ultimately, 100 youth will be served during that the project and the program. Currently, there are 82 youth who have been leased, and they continue to receive supportive services and case management services from our partners such as WIND Youth and also Waking the Village and also Lutheran Social Services. Another effort that helps combat homelessness is the Sacramento Emergency Rental Assistance, where here we administer both the state and the city and the county funds related to rental assistance. And as you all know, many people during the pandemic were facing eviction or having to owe back rent, and the emergency rental assistance is an opportunity for people to receive funds to reduce or remove their back rents. So next, I'd like to talk about some workforce and economic development opportunities. We have a really pioneering opportunity that we call Financial Institution Partnership Opportunity. With our partners in the FDIC, we've been able to convene over 20-plus banks, credit unions, and philanthropic organizations, and they partner together. We're not seeing anywhere where banks are working together at this level to pool funds and string funds together to fund nonprofit projects. So through an RFP process, we are able to offer opportunities for nonprofits to request up to $150,000 for projects. During the fourth round, it was taking place prior to the pandemic, but once the pandemic hit, the banks decided that the funds that were going to be awarded to Rebuilding Together Sacramento and Juma Incorporated, that they could use them kind of for COVID relief as opposed to what they had initially proposed. And you can find out more about FIPO on the FIPO story map, and that is on our website at sacramentopromisezone.org. Another workforce and economic development related opportunity was we have a collaborative that we call the Sacramento Promise Zone Sustainable Communities Collaborative. And in that collaborative, we have the Sacramento Black Chamber of Commerce, both the city and county of Sacramento, SMUD, our utilities district here in Sacramento, the Sacramento Kings, and UC Davis, one of our local universities. And we were able to facilitate and fund, a solar training program that had 15-plus trainees who were trained in solar installation and other solar skills, and that was a conduit to jobs for many of those trainees. And one of the jobs that some of those trainees worked on was with SMUD. They have these giant installations that are called solar trees. They're 30-foot structures that provide shade, but they also gather energy that goes into the grid and goes into the systems to reduce energy costs, and also provides an opportunity for the public to walk up and do things such as charge their phones. And we're really excited about that because it provided jobs for some of the trainees from the solar training program. Another program was the Energy Baron program. The collaborative was able to fund this program, which is a really awesome program from an organization called Eco Alpha. Eco Alpha is an environmental and engineering organization, and Energy Barons are folks who are facilities professionals, and they work to lower energy usage and utility costs for facilities. So they basically focus on energy efficiency, and they really help reduce the costs that businesses have. So that project is underway, and right now the application for that project is open, so we're really excited about approximately 20 trainees going through that and then getting a conduit to jobs. Next, I'll talk about distance learning related things. We have a really great partner called Scholars Playground. It's led by Nicholas Hastings here in Sacramento, and they provide online classes, tutoring, and provide an opportunity for youth to have a community. And they really created this during the pandemic to respond to the fact that students were doing distance learning, and it was all brand new for teachers, for students, for parents. And so they created this to provide support. They were able to provide supplemental education. They were able to provide mentoring and tutoring. And they focus on your traditional academic subjects such as math and STEM, but they also provided other things such as mindfulness and virtual field trips. And one of the things that we did to help support this and continue to do to help support this is provide funding matchmaking. We introduced Scholars Playground to the 20-plus banks and other financial institutions that were a part of the FIPO efforts, and allowed them to share what the platform was to see if there would be funding that any of those institutions could provide to help support this great project. And we also continue to help support all of the partners who are part of this. There's many nonprofits, local artists, and et cetera who are partners. We provide information sharing for them and resource sharing as well. And the last but not least project that we're really excited about that's underway that we believe is going to help in regards to students being away from school is the Sacramento Literacy Foundation provided funding so that they could purchase 30,000 books. And what we're going to do with those 30,000 books is work with local partners, use volunteers, and coordinate with our two school districts here, the Sac City Unified School District and the Twin Rivers Unified School District, to distribute books to every student who is in those Promise Zone schools who are in kindergarten through second grade. They will receive 5 to 8 books each. And there's lots of research to talk about how much academic scores and academic accommodating graduation rates and things of that nature increase when students have books in their own home, and that is usually changed even with one book. So imagine kids getting 5 to 8 brand new books. So we're really excited about this, and that is the end of my presentation. Looks like there's a technical difficulty with our PowerPoint. With that being said, once again, you can find out more information at the SacramentoPromiseZone.org, and I would like to turn it over to Ramel.
Thank you so much, Julius. Hi, everybody. My name is Ramel Calderwood. I'm with HUD headquarters. I want to applaud our Promise Zone presenters. In the interest of time, we'll actually take questions via the Promise Zone at HUD.gov inbox, and we will collect them and answer them accordingly. But I do want to pass the mic to Jackie Ponte from USDA's Rural Development to provide closing remarks.
Thank you, Ramel, and thank you, everyone, for participating in this first webinar of a 3-part series. With growing economic pressures caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, it's clear to see from today's presentations, Promise Zones are employing flexibility and resiliency and pivoting their strategies and truly responding to the immediate needs of their residents. It was great to hear the presentations today. We've heard from 4 Promise Zones today about their innovative solutions that they've implemented and how they're supporting their communities. And we've also shared some collective resources and information on how to move forward and work forward. Work has not paused with the dedicated efforts to support these vital communities. As we continue forward in this webinar series, we will have additional opportunities to collaborate with our Promise Zones during our second webinar on March 16th. This webinar will focus on promoting COVID-19 business relief and job opportunities. The third and final webinar of the series is on March 30th, where we'll delve into virtual engagements and responding to the digital divide. We hope you will join us for one or both of these. And again, our collective partnerships are what makes us stronger. Sharing innovative response strategies provides for discovery of creative solutions that can help our Promise Zone communities rebuild. Thank you all for being here, and have a terrific afternoon.
That now concludes our conference. Thank you for joining today's webinar. You may now disconnect.